The stagecoach rattled through the dusty plains, wheels biting into the ruts carved by wagons long before, and every jolt seemed to echo inside her chest. Mary Ellen clutched her small bag tight, the one thing left from the life she had chosen to leave behind, and in her lap lay a folded letter, creased so many times it looked almost ready to tear. The words on that page had carried her through the long nights of fear and hunger, words that promised safety, a husband, a new beginning, a ranch in the open west where the horizon stretched farther than the pain of her past. But as the driver called out and the stage slowed before a weathered gate marked with a crooked S, doubt knotted inside her. She had imagined something grander, yet what lay before her was a ranch beaten by storms and years of hard living, barns leaning, fences broken, a house that seemed tired and lonely. And waiting on the porch was not the middle-aged widower she had read about in letters, but a tall man with dark eyes under the brim of his hat, his stance rigid, like he wasn't expecting her at all. Mary stepped down from the stage, the dust swirling around her skirt. "Sir," she whispered, voice trembling, "I am Mary Ellen, the bride sent from St. Louis." Silence stretched like a whip crack. The man's jaw clenched, his voice steady but sharp. "You're at the wrong ranch, ma'am. We didn't send for no bride." Her heart stuttered, fear gnawing at her resolve. Had she been tricked, cast aside into this wild land with no one to claim her? Before she could gather her courage, a small figure slipped from the doorway. A girl no older than 7, hair tangled like the prairie grass, eyes wide with a sorrow that no child should carry. She stepped close to Mary and tugged her skirt, and in a voice soft as a prayer she said, "God finally sent you to us." Those words froze everyone, even the man on the porches. Each seemed struck, his eyes flickering with something he fought to hide. Mary knelt down, tears pricking her eyes. "And who might you be, little one?" The girl's lips trembled, but she smiled shyly. "I'm Clara. Mama's gone to heaven, and Papa don't smile no more." Her small hand tightened around Mary's fingers as though she had been waiting, as though she knew this stranger was the answer to a need too deep to name. The tall man's voice broke in, rough but not unkind. "Clara, inside." But the child clung tighter. "No, Papa, this is her. This is the one Mama said God would send." The man turned away, like he couldn't bear to look. Mary felt the weight of her own journey pressing heavier. This was not the ranch promised in letters, but the girl's plea carved through her doubts. Something in this place, in this family, called to her heart in a way she had not expected. The night fell fast in the west, stars glimmering sharp above the open land. Mary found herself seated at their worn wooden table, a bowl of stew before her, the silence thick as the prairie night. The man finally spoke his name. Samuel Carver, widower, rancher, weary to the bone. He explained no letter had been written, no bride requested. Yet fate, or mistake, had delivered her here. She should leave at first light, he said. But Clara sat beside her, hand never leaving Mary's, whispering promises that she was meant to stay. Mary stared at the fire crackling in the hearth, the loneliness of her journey colliding with the unexpected warmth of the child's faith. Could she truly leave? Could she abandon a girl who looked at her with hope too fragile to break? Outside, the coyotes howled like spirits calling, and deep in her chest, Mary felt a pull stronger than any letter, stronger than any plan. Destiny had not brought her where she expected, but maybe, just maybe, it had brought her where she belonged. And as the wind swept against the walls, Mary realized the West did not give the life one expected. It gave the life one was strong enough to claim, and hers was just beginning. The morning broke cold, a pale sun crawling over the horizon as if it too carried doubt about rising. Mary stood on the porch of the Carver Ranch, her shawl tight against her shoulders. She had slept little, the creaking of the house and the ache in her heart battling through the long hours. Samuel had been clear. She was not wanted here. She was a mistake. Yet the little girl's soft breathing beside her bed, the way Clara had curled against her as if she had always belonged there, had anchored her more than she could admit. Samuel stepped out with the dawn, his boots crunching against the frost-kissed dirt, his hat pulled low. He did not look at Mary as he crossed to the barn, his silence a wall taller than any fence. Mary wanted to speak, to tell him she would go, that she understood, but her lips would not form the words. It was Clara's voice that broke the hush. She had followed her father with bare feet, her braids undone. "Papa," she said softly, "don't send her away. Mama said someone would come when we needed them most." Samuel froze, his back rigid, then he gathered the rope he carried and walked on. Mary's heart ached, for she could see how grief had chained him, how he kept his distance because the loss of his wife had carved too deep. The morning chores were harsh, the ranch broken down from years of storms and sorrow. Fences sagged, cattle too thin, the barn roof patched with whatever wood Samuel could salvage. Mary offered her hands. Though unused to ranch work, she carried water, mended small tears in Clara's dress, and when Samuel finally looked up at her, sweat glistening on his brow, she thought she saw something flicker. Reluctant respect, or perhaps just surprise that she did not complain. But the peace of the day shattered when riders appeared on the ridge, 3 of them, dark silhouettes against the pale sky. Samuel stiffened, his hand reaching for the rifle propped against the barn door. "Stay inside," he ordered, his voice edged with steel. Clara clung to Mary's skirt, whispering, "They come back, Papa, the men that took the calf." Mary's pulse raced. She had read of outlaws in dime novels, but now, standing in their shadow, she felt the true weight of danger. The riders descended, dust trailing behind them, rough men with unshaven faces and eyes that looked only for weakness. Their leader dismounted, boots hitting the dirt with a thud. "Carver," he drawled, "we come for what you owe." Samuel's jaw clenched. "You've taken enough." The man laughed, a cruel sound. "Debt don't end till I say." Mary's breath caught. The scene felt unreal, yet the fear was sharp. Clara pressed tighter against her, whispering prayers. Samuel stood his ground, rifle steady, though his shoulders sagged with the weight of too many burdens. Mary wanted to scream at the men, to tell them to leave, but she knew words here could spark blood. The standoff stretched until the outlaw spat at the dirt. "You'll pay, Carver, next time we take more than cattle." His eyes slid to Mary, lingering too long. "And maybe something prettier." Mary's skin crawled, but before she could shrink away, Samuel stepped between them, his voice a growl. "She's not yours to look at, not yours to touch. Now ride on." The men laughed again, mocking, but they mounted and rode off, leaving the threat hanging like smoke. Clara sobbed against Mary's waist. Samuel lowered the rifle slowly, and for the first time his eyes met Mary's fully raw and unguarded. "This is no place for you, ma'am," he said hoarsely, "but it seems fate brought you here, and now you're tangled in it." The night came heavy, silence pressing down after the storm of the day. Clara would not leave Mary's side, the child's trust a bond no outlaw could break. Mary sat by the fire, Samuel across from her, shadows playing on his face. "I'll find a way to send you to town," he murmured. "You'll be safer there." But Mary shook her head, her voice trembling yet certain. "I was sent here, Mr. Carver, by mistake, or by God's hand. I don't know. But Clara needs me, and I won't leave her to face fear alone." Samuel's gaze lingered on her, searching for weakness, but instead he found resolve, and though he said no more, the firelight revealed the faintest crack in his wall of sorrow. Mary knew then her journey was no accident. Danger stalked this land, grief haunted this home, but something greater was at work. She had been sent to the wrong ranch, but perhaps it was the only place she was ever meant to be. The wind began its warning long before the sky darkened, a restless howl rolling across the plains, rattling the shutters and bending the dry grass low. Mary stood at the window, shawl wrapped tight around her, watching the horizon bruise into deep gray. She had seen storms back east, but nothing like this, not the kind of storm that seemed to swallow the earth whole. Samuel came in from the barn, face shadowed with worry. He shook the rain from his hat and set it down. "Blizzard's coming fast," he muttered, voice heavy. "We've got hours at most to get ready." Mary's heart jumped. Blizzard, the word carried weight, survival or ruin. She moved without asking, following Samuel's instructions, fetching firewood, pulling in blankets, securing the shutters. Clara ran between them, her small hands trying to help, though fear kept her eyes wide and wet. The storm hit like a beast loosed from the mountains, snow and wind slamming against the walls, the sound deafening, as if the ranch, each house were under siege. The fire flickered, shadows leaping across their faces. Mary huddled close to Clara, feeling the child's trembling. She whispered songs from her childhood, soft hymns her mother once sang, anything to drown out the roar of the storm. Samuel paced, his eyes sharp. He was thinking of the cattle, of the barn roof that might not hold, of fences that could vanish beneath the drifts. "We'll lose head tonight," he said, half to himself. Mary spoke up, her voice steady though her hands shook. "Then let me help. I can hold a lantern. I can keep the fire. Don't shut me out." Samuel's eyes met hers, tired but fierce. "You don't know this land. It'll kill you if you step wrong." She lifted her chin. "Then teach me." The storm raged for hours, the cold seeping into the cracks no matter how they stuffed them, and when the barn roof began to groan under the weight of snow, Samuel grabbed his coat. "I have to go," he said. Mary rose at once. "Then I go too," Clara cried out, clutching Mary. "Don't leave me." Mary bent low, kissing her forehead. "We'll come back, I promise." Together, Mary and Samuel plunged into the storm, the cold like knives against their skin, the snow blinding. Mary stumbled, but Samuel's hand gripped her arm, steadying her, guiding her through the white chaos. The barn loomed like a shadow, half buried already. Inside, the animals cried, hooves striking, eyes rolling in fear. They worked side by side, Samuel lifting beams, Mary shoving straw against cracks, lantern light flickering across their faces, their breath clouds mixing in the bitter air. A moment came when the roof sagged too low. When it seemed the barn itself would fall, Mary cried out, grabbing a rope to tie beams, her fingers raw. Samuel looked at her, really looked, through the blinding snow, and something unspoken passed between them, a bond forged not in words but in seeing. Survival in shared danger, in the fire of two souls refusing to break. When they staggered back to the house, frozen and breathless, Clara ran to them, sobbing, throwing her arms around both. Mary sank beside the fire, skin burning with thaw. Samuel stood over her, his jaw tight, his eyes softer than before. "You shouldn't have gone out," he said low. "But you did." Mary met his gaze, exhausted yet unyielding. "I told you, I will not leave you to face this alone." The storm roared on through the night, but inside the small house something shifted. Samuel sat nearer the fire, closer to Mary. Though he said nothing more, Clara fell asleep between them, her small head resting on Mary's lap. Mary stroked her hair, her eyes heavy, and in the crackle of the fire she felt it. She belonged here, not by chance, not by mistake, but by something greater. The West was cruel, yet it carved truth sharper than any blade. And tonight, in the heart of the storm, Mary knew hers. She was not only the bride sent to the wrong ranch, she was the woman sent to the right family. The storm left the land silent and broken. The plains stretched white and endless. Fences buried, cattle scattered. The Carver ranch had survived, but barely. Samuel stood at the edge of the porch, surveying the damage, his face carved in stone. Mary joined him, shawl pulled tight, her breath fogging in the sharp cold. "We'll make it through," she said softly, though doubt crept into her own chest. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Making it through ain't the same as living," he muttered, and walked toward the barn. Mary watched him go, knowing his grief and pride kept him chained, but she also saw the cracks. The way his hand lingered on Clara's shoulder now, the way his eyes lingered on Mary's face when he thought she wasn't looking. Days passed and slowly they rebuilt. Mary worked alongside Samuel, her hands blistered, her back sore, but she did not complain. Clara followed close, her laughter beginning to return like sunlight after too long a winter. Sometimes Mary caught Samuel watching her when she braided Clara's hair or sang softly in the evenings. And in those moments the silence between them felt alive, heavy with things neither dared to say. But peace in the West was always fragile, and it shattered one afternoon when the riders returned. 3 of them again, their horses dark against the snow. Mary's heart clenched. She pulled Clara behind her as Samuel stepped forward, rifle in hand. The leader, the one with eyes like cold steel, smirked as he swung down from his saddle. "Told you, Carver, debt don't go away," he said, voice dripping with malice. "And now you've got yourself a pretty new house guest. Maybe she'll pay what you can't." Mary's blood froze. Clara whimpered, clinging to her skirts. Samuel's voice was low and dangerous. "You lay a hand on either of them, you won't ride away breathing." The men laughed, cruel and sharp. One reached for Mary's arm, but she stepped back, chin lifted, her voice steady despite her fear. "I am not afraid of you," she said, words trembling but true. "And God help you if you touch this child." The outlaw sneered, but Mary's defiance seemed to catch him off guard. Samuel raised the rifle higher, finger tight on the trigger. "Enough!" he barked. The standoff stretched, the air brittle. Clara's small hand found Mary's, gripping tight. Finally, the leader spat on the ground. "This ain't over, Carver. Next time we come, we take what we want." With a sharp whistle, he swung onto his horse. The riders turned and vanished into the distance, but their promise lingered like poison. Inside, the fire burned, but the house felt colder. Mary held Clara close, her own hands shaking only once the danger had passed. Samuel set the rifle aside, his shoulders slumping as though the weight of the world pressed down. He turned to Mary, eyes raw. "You should have left when I told you." Mary rose, anger flashing through her fear. "And left Clara, left you, to face that alone? No. Samuel Carver, I was sent here for a reason, and I will not run." Clara lifted her tear-streaked face, whispering, "Papa, don't send her away. Mama said God would send someone brave." Samuel's chest rose and fell, his eyes flicking between his daughter and Mary. Something broke in him then. Not defeat, but the wall he had built since his wife's death. He sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. Mary had never seen him so unguarded, so human. She crossed the room, laying a hand on his shoulder. He flinched at first, then stilled. The silence stretched, the only sound the crackle of the fire and Clara's soft breathing as she drifted into sleep. "You're right," Samuel said at last, voice hoarse. "Maybe God did send you. Maybe I've been too blind with grief to see it." He lifted his head, eyes meeting hers, filled with pain and something else, something tender, dangerous, and real. Mary's heart pounded. She had not come here to find love. She had not expected to find a home. Yet as she looked into Samuel's eyes, she felt the West weaving her into its story. Threads of sorrow, hope, and a promise not yet spoken. The days after the rider's threat felt stretched thin. Every sound on the wind made Mary's chest tighten. The howl of coyotes, the creak of the barn roof, even the slam of a loose shutter at night carried the weight of danger. Clara clung closer, her laughter quieter. And though Samuel carried himself with the same hard strength, Mary saw the way his hand lingered on the rifle more often. Spring thaw began, but instead of hope, it brought mud and unease. Samuel worked long hours repairing fences, his eyes always scanning the ridge. Mary tried to keep Clara busy, sewing, teaching her letters, singing when fear made the child's hands tremble. Yet in every quiet moment, she wondered when the outlaws would return and if she was strong enough to face what was coming. The answer came one dusk, sudden and merciless. The sky burned orange with sunset when hooves thundered in the distance. Samuel stiffened at the sound, his voice sharp. "Inside, both of you." Mary grabbed Clara's hand, rushing her toward the house, but before the door shut, riders appeared, more than before. 5 now, their faces shadowed under wide brims, guns glinting. They surrounded the house, dust rising around them. Their leader called out, his voice cruel and mocking. "Carver, time's up. We take what's ours tonight." Samuel stepped into the open, rifle steady, but Mary saw his jaw tense. He was outnumbered, outgunned. The men laughed, circling like wolves. One shouted, "Hand over the girl, hand over the woman, and maybe we leave you breathing." Clara whimpered. Mary's arms tightened around her, her fear hot in her throat, yet something stronger burned beneath it. Fury. She stepped onto the porch, her voice ringing clear. "You'll take neither of us. This house is under God's hand." The outlaws jeered, but her words seemed to strike something. Samuel's gaze cut to her, sharp and filled with something like pride. He raised the rifle, firing a warning shot into the dirt at their leader's boots. The moment cracked, the fight began. Gunfire split the evening air, bullets tearing splinters from the porch. Mary pulled Clara down, shielding her with her body. Smoke stung her eyes, the smell of powder sharp. Samuel fired again and again, each shot steady, his face grim. The men scattered, some firing back, others spurring their horses around the corral. "Mary!" Samuel shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. "Keep Clara low, get to the root cellar." But Mary knew if she left him alone, he would fall, and the ranch would be lost. She scrambled to the doorway. Grabbing the old pistol Samuel's wife had once kept, the metal cold in her hand, her knees shaking, she lifted it anyway. One of the outlaws broke from the group, rushing the porch. Eyes wild, Mary aimed, heart pounding so loud she thought it would drown her. She fired, the kick jolting her whole body. The man stumbled, cursing, and fell back into the dirt. Not dead, but down. Mary gasped, trembling, yet her hand stayed firm. Clara's wide eyes fixed on her with awe. Samuel fought like a man with nothing left to lose, but Mary saw the truth. He was fighting for more now, fighting for them, for her, for Clara. And though the outlaws pressed hard, they began to falter. The ranch held, their courage breaking the invaders' greed. At last, with curses and threats, the riders pulled back, spurring their horses into the dusk, their leader's voice carrying as he vanished. "This ain't the end, Carver. We'll be back, and next time, no mercy." Silence fell, broken only by Clara's soft sobs and the ragged breaths of two souls who had given everything to protect her. Samuel lowered the rifle, his hands trembling. Mary stepped to him, pistol still heavy in her grip, her breath uneven. He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. Not as a burden, not as a mistake, but as the woman who had stood beside him when death came to their door. He reached out, rough hand brushing hers, his voice rough. "You saved us." Mary shook her head, tears slipping free. "No, Samuel, we saved each other." Clara threw her arms around them both, whispering through her tears, "Mama said God would send someone. She was right." The fire burned low that night, the three of them huddled close, the house scarred but standing. Outside the land lay quiet. But Mary knew the storm of men would return. Yet she also knew this. She no longer feared standing her ground, not with Clara's trust and Samuel's eyes finally letting her in. The weeks that followed were uneasy. Every dawn brought the same question. Would this be the day the riders returned? The cattle grew thinner, fences sagged, and the ranch carried the marks of every hardship. But it was the scars inside each of them that ached the most. Samuel's grief, Mary's fear of being cast out, Clara's small heart learning too early that the world could be cruel. Yet in that brokenness, something else grew. Mary and Samuel worked side by side, their silences no longer sharp but steady. Clara's laughter slowly returned, soft at first. Then bright as spring thawed the plains. The house felt alive again. The fire warm, not just with wood, but with the rhythm of family. But peace in the West was a fragile thing. And the end came one night when the sound of hooves shattered the quiet, louder than before. More horses, more men, torches flaring against the dark. Samuel grabbed his rifle, his face grim. "They've come for blood this time," he said. Mary gathered Clara close, her voice steady though her heart hammered. "Then we'll fight, together." The riders surrounded the ranch, shouting threats, their leader at the front, torch raised high. "Burn it down! Take what's ours!" Flames licked at the fences, the dry wood catching fast, the night alive with smoke and fire. Samuel fired, his shot taking one rider down. Chaos exploded, bullets whistling, horses screaming, the smell of burning wood choking the air. Mary pulled Clara toward the root cellar, but Clara clung tighter, shaking her head. "No, Mama said we fight together." Her small voice breaking. Mary's eyes burned with tears, but she nodded. "Then stay behind me." She grabbed the pistol, stepping out into the firelight. Samuel fought like a man reborn. Grief burned into fury, but the odds pressed hard. An outlaw rushed the porch, torch in hand. Mary raised her pistol. Her shot rang out. The torch dropped, sputtering in the dirt. She stood firm, shoulders shaking but unbroken. The leader spurred forward, shouting curses. He aimed his gun at Samuel. Time slowed. Mary's breath caught. Then Clara's small voice cut through the chaos, clear as a bell. "Leave my papa alone." The outlaw's eyes flicked, and in that heartbeat Samuel fired. The leader toppled from his horse. The fight broke. The riders faltered. Some fled, some fell, and at last silence returned. Broken only by the crackle of flames dying in the dirt, Samuel staggered, his rifle lowering. Mary rushed to him, her hands gripping his arm. His eyes found hers, filled with exhaustion and something deeper. "We're still standing," he whispered. Mary nodded, her voice soft, "because we stood together." Clara slipped between them, arms wrapping both, whispering through tears, "God sent us a family." The dawn that followed was quiet, smoke drifting across the plains. The ranch scarred but not broken. The outlaws were gone, scattered. The law would come eventually, but for now the land belonged to them again. Mary stood with Clara in her arms, Samuel beside her, his hand resting on hers, not hesitant, not afraid, but sure. In the silence, Mary understood. She had come to the wrong ranch, but the West had given her something greater than she ever sought. Not just a home, not just survival, but love. Fierce and tested, forged in fire and storm, Samuel turned to her, his voice low but steady. You came by mistake, Mary, but you're no mistake to us. Stay, if you'll have me. Her heart swelled, tears slipping free. I was sent here for you, Samuel, for Clara, for this family, and I will never leave. Clara's laughter rang out, bright as morning, and for the first time in years, Samuel smiled, truly smiled.